Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. If you'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. It is meeting starting at 7:30. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes.
Mark Can.
Here.
Augie Fernandez.
Here.
Daryl Lewandowski. Here. TJ McLaughlin.
Here.
Pamela Weller.
Here.
Bruce Reeves here. And Dan McGarry.
Here.
All present and accounted for. Thank you.
Have a quorum. Approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted for June 19th, 2017.
We have a second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor of approving the Planning Commission agenda of June 19, 2017, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The agenda passes. Number 5. Public comment. Mr. Walsey.
Yeah, a question for the Planning Commission. I was just wondering what the urgency is in regard to the private drive, private road public hearing, and why did this take precedent over the other township projects?
The other, I'll answer, I just want public comment.
I had another question.
Oh, okay.
In addition to, after you answer that question.
Oh, well, I think to most of us, it was a surprise that this was a public hearing. We weren't expecting it. We didn't know it was going to be a public hearing. And so there is no urgency. We expected it to be on the agenda as a discussion item, and that's it. There's no urgency.
Well, my understanding that it's the chair that sets the agenda, so you must have been aware that it's a public hearing. It should have been your decision to create this public hearing.
I did not request the public hearing. The agenda was sent to me on Tuesday or Wednesday, which means the notice would have gone out before then, so I wasn't aware of it. And that's where we have it.
So you don't set the agenda then?
I work with the planner and the zoning administrator to create the agenda.
And also, did this public hearing meet all the notification requirements, like notification in the newspaper?
It's my understanding, yes. I asked our planner today.
Did you see it in the newspaper yourself or any of the planning commissioners?
No, I did not.
Thank you very much.
They said there was a copy in our packet. I do not have one in mine. Dan's not here, Paul's not here. And I'm sure Matt is not aware either, so.
Well, I believe I did, I went through the emails and with the email that had the packet in it and the public notice hearing was in there.
Okay. I picked one out of my box. It's already printed off, and it wasn't in there, so.
Shouldn't that be part of the due diligence of the planning commissioners to make sure it meets all the requirements of a public hearing?
Well, when I saw that it was a public hearing, I immediately called Paul and asked him why it was a public hearing, because I wasn't expecting it. And he said it was a misunderstanding, that it should have been included in my packet. And unfortunately, it wasn't in my packet. So, I know it's disappointing.
Was it in everybody else's packet?
I don't know, I can't speak for them.
Well, you have the opportunity to withdraw this from the agenda if you're disappointed.
Yes,
Are you?
I thought it might be best if we hear what the public has to say.
May I add a comment as well?
Sure.
If we have not met all the requirements by law, because of notifications, and of course, these can't obviously take effect if the decision is made, but we can still, as you said here, from the public, there's something wrong with that, especially if there was a notification in the paper, then by all means, those who have come should be allowed to speak their piece.
I believe we also have public comment on topics other than those that are on the agenda.
Yes. Mrs. McLaughlin said it was published on June 4th, and here's a copy of it. So you got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Horton?
Any activity on that could be tabled to the next meeting or two? Not a big deal.
Absolutely. Well, it was considered whether to take it off the agenda.
Should be on hearing, and then, you know, we don't have to take action.
Right, right. Since other people might have been prepared to speak and whatnot, we thought we would carry on and listen to what they have to say. But there is no urgency to make any decision as of today. So I apologize for the confusion. Yes, Mr. Muirhead?
And just to make it clear, you're the chairperson up there, right?
Yes.
And you did not set this agenda, right?
Did I
You said it was set to you.
I approved it.
You approved it, when?
Last Tuesday or Wednesday, I said.
So you knew a week ago it was gonna be on here.
Well, I didn't see the public hearing part, so,
Ma'am,
It's my
right out in the
mistake.
open. It's right out in the open.
yes,
All you do is read.
yes. Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Hill?
Yeah, it's just really asking you to educate us, or me probably. I heard there's about 180 units that could be homes that could be affected by this proposal. Is it in the public domain, the map showing how the properties are spread across the township? The reason I'm asking that is it's a bit loaded, but I'm concerned that if we have all this infill development that this would offer, we could be turning ourselves into an urban place rather than the rural place that we so love.
Sure. You know what, this was just supposed to be, from our understanding, a discussion. You know, we have a lot of questions, and we all have the very same concerns that you do. So I don't anticipate a whole lot of progress on this other than information gathering this evening.
I think, oh, sorry.
Is this part of it that relates to that part of the agenda, go for the public hearing?
Yeah,
And we should
right.
look
Yeah.
at public comment being other than the public hearing.
Right.
Yes,
That's what it should be.
okay.
Well, the other thing I want to say, because I've experienced shared drives. In fact, my last home was a shared drive in Northwood.
So do you want to save that for when we open the public hearing?
Okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
the notice of the public hearing was published on 6/4/17.
thank you.
Okay.
And I apologize for my errors. Do we have any other public comment?
I'd like to,
He raised his
Oh,
hand
yeah,
first,
right.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to understand the process. There will be another section of public comment at the end once we're done talking about the possible private drive, or are we talking about that right now?
No, we're talking about just public comment in general to other things on the agenda. And then we will open the public hearing,
Okay.
which is in regards to public,
Okay.
the drives.
Okay.
And then there will be public comment again at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
my time should come when the public comment is in order.
For the public hearing?
Yes.
In the next
Okay.
30 seconds.
We're there.
Yeah, we're there.
Mr. Muirhead?
Yeah, if you didn't have order to have the public hearing, who ordered the public hearing? For tonight? Who put that on the agenda for tonight?
The planner.
One of those guys?
Yes. Not him though.
I'll take the heat.
Okay. Okay. Any other public comment before we open the public hearing?
You know, to clear this up, the professional planner and the township planning assistant is Ann, and they took a look at this subject matter that Paul was going to bring back to us, because we gave him direction at the last meeting to bring us back more information on this to discuss. They took a look at it and anticipated maybe there would be action taken at this meeting, and they thought that before you take action, we better have a public hearing. So they went ahead and put into effect a public hearing. There's nothing wrong with what they did. There's nothing wrong at all. They were trying to do the proper thing to make sure we weren't going to take any action without a public hearing. So that's what happened. There was a little miscommunication going on, but it's...
Actually, there'd be a lot of miscommunication.
well, I mean, that's your opinion.
Why, what's my opinion?
So,
I'm telling you.
that's it.
Okay, very good.
I have some.
Thank you. 6, new business items. Oops, I'm sorry.
I just want to appreciate someone coming in here and taking chief shot at the planning commission. A mistake was made, big deal. Get over it.
Yeah.
All down yourself, little buddy.
Okay.
All right,
also,
all right, come on.
Okay,
regard-
I'm going to speak right now. This has to stop.
I wasn't taking
No,
cheap
just
shots.
please let me speak. I did not interrupt you. The constant bantering is unproductive. If we could just wait to be called upon, I will call upon you guys. I always do. Thank you. Mr. Walsey.
Yes. In response to Mr. Vigari, he said there must be a public hearing before you vote on it. That's not necessarily true. If you have a public hearing, you could also vote on this issue the very same night.
I said that they decided that it would be best to have a public hearing, okay?
It's required to have a public
Okay.
hearing.
Okay,
There was-
well, if it's required, then we did it, didn't we?
There
If you're
was
passing an ordinance.
it was miscommunication. It's my fault for not reading what they had sent me accurately. I apologize. We're moving on.
Thank you.
Linda.
First of all, for some of us, this is not a new issue. We've already discussed it once. It's absolutely appropriate tonight to have a public hearing. There's a public hearing to speak on it. And to try to constantly challenge the planning commission, you hire consultants to give you advice. Every organization does it. That's why you have them. There's nothing wrong with using your consultants. You don't always have to agree with them, but there's nothing wrong with using them. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and if I could respond to that. I sat here at a planning commission meeting a few months ago, and if you're going to take the sole advice of the planning consultants and also the planning commissioners, I say we deserve to ask questions, because there has to be some oversight over the planning commission, and that's us here. Let me finish. I didn't interrupt you.
I didn't say a word.
In regard to that, in regard to, there was a rezoning on a church here a little while ago, I recall. And not one of the planning commissioners went to see that signs weren't posted at this church, to see that the basic elements of a rezoning were met. You remember that meeting? And you kept saying, I dropped the ball, I dropped the ball. The planning consultant missed it, the entire planning commission missed that. And the part that really troubled me about all that, if you think about this is the same planning commission that can't deal with a simple rezoning of a property. They're dealing with show stat. So I think we have every right in the world to ask these questions. Is this incompetence that we're looking at here? You have to answer to us, and don't forget that.
Don't say a thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Walsey.
Okay, we're going on to the public hearing because we're interested in hearing what the public has to say. So number 6. Number 7. Number 6, I'm sorry. New business items. Public hearing, private roads, private drives. We have a motion to open.
I'll make a motion that we open a public hearing on the topic.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. public hearing is open at 7:45. Would you like? Oh, fine.
I'm not gonna come up to the microphone as per public hearings, but I would like to know how this new adjusted driveway and private drive ordinance is going to affect the existing ones. Is it, now, the reason I ask is in 1997, 92, when they tried to readjust it, they tried to make all the existing ones had to come up to this new ordinance, had to come up to the new ordinance at that time. And my neighbors appreciated it afterwards, but I went hammer and tong with people because I wanted all the existing ones grandfathered in, and they wanted all the existing ones brought up to 60 foot and so much base and so much whatever. And we didn't come out here to live on a highway, we came out here to live on a private drive.
Thank you.
Are you not answering? You're just listening, you're not answering right now, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And Bonnie, I'll tell you that because we have all the same questions.
I know,
We've got a
but
gazillion
I wanted to
questions.
know whether I was waiting for an answer.
Oh, okay.
If you're just getting my questions,
Right.
that's fine.
Right. I have one of the same questions, so. Mr. Walsey.
Thank you. I hope everybody had a chance to take a step back after the last meeting, and for every action, there's a reaction. And had a chance to look through our master plan. If you look through our master plan, it continually talks about preserving our rural character. It talks about protecting and preserving open space. That's the key function of our master plan, and it should be the key function of this planning commission to do that. Not to overdevelop our community. If you take these long, narrow lots that are basically unbuildable, some of these lots are so narrow that you couldn't put a second driveway next to them. What that will do is, that'll bring a lot of other people into play. People that did their homework when they purchased, they did their due diligence when they purchased their piece of property, and they felt basically they were landlocked back on a piece of property. Now this will open this up to development, our community. And I had a certain expectation when I purchased my property. I knew there was long, narrow pieces that couldn't be developed because they didn't have driveway access back there. So now, and I'm certain that there's going to be a lot of other people that are going to be in the same position as me. And I think what this gentleman in front of me was referring to before was, is the township taking an inventory of the land in our property, look at a land use map, and see how many properties that may be affected by this proposed driveway ordinance. Hopefully you've done that, because it will have an impact on a lot of people. And it's your job, remember, as planning commissioner, to give everybody a reasonable use to develop their piece of property, not the greatest use for their piece of property. And what somebody said after the last meeting to me, they said, this planning commission is not going to be satisfied until Salem Township looks like another Canton of you. And I'll refer back to a survey that was done, I think it was in 2012. Excuse me, sir, I'm speaking.
You know, it's just.
Excuse me, sir, I said I'm speaking. This is a public comment period
I'm sorry, Mr.
that I'm
Walsey.
adhering
Please
to.
continue.
If you have your time to speak, I won't interrupt you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. You don't have the disposition to be a planning
Mr.
commissioner.
Walsey.
Okay, Mr.
Please
Walsey,
continue.
just keep on the technical aspects, not the personal aspects, okay? I
That's not
appreciate that.
personal. I have every right in the world. I have a constitutional right.
Gentlemen,
I have a constitutional right
Mr. Walsey, would you
Absolutely, Mr.
please?
Walsey.
to criticize my elected officials and the officials of this township.
Augie.
So don't tell me to be quiet.
It's okay.
Thank you very much.
You're right, you're right.
Yes, I am right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
can we carry on with this?
In
Mr.
2012, there
Walsey?
was a survey done in a township. And overwhelmingly, the survey indicated, overwhelmingly, the people that responded to the survey, I should say, that overwhelmingly, the people moved here because of the rural character. And the preservation of the rural character of Salem Township has to be your number one priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Both you two are grounded, knock it off. Just, no, wait, no, okay. Oh, right. Mrs. Hamilton?
As I stated at the last meeting, and will do so for the record tonight, this is a good change to this ordinance. We talk about wanting to preserve the rural character of the community. We want to care for the environment. To run two driveways next to each other because we don't allow such a thing isn't good for the environment. It's twice the impervious surface that you have to have. This is not going to overdevelop the community. All you have to do is look at a parcel map. There are a few parcels that are 10 acres. You still have other requirements that have to be met. What this will stop is on Napier Road, there's a gentleman who put a private road back to access his property. He has a 66-foot road easement with a gravel road in the middle of it. It's probably 30 foot wide. This would allow you to have a second driveway, much smaller, to get to that same parcel. And I think it's a good thing for the community because it's a good thing for the environment, and it makes a lot of sense versus requiring everybody that wants to access a back piece of property to have to put in a private road. Thank you.
If I may comment? No. Public comment. I'm asking the chair.
Let's see if everyone else has one, then I'll come back to you, okay?
Thank you very much.
Does anyone else? Yes, sir. And if you could state your name, because we know everybody else.
I'm Cale Leftwich. I grew up in Salem. I lived here until I was 19 years old, and then I went off to college. This was an amazing town to grow up in. I voted down here. I've been here for every festival, for everything that you could ever be a part of. I love this town. And I love it for the same reasons you guys do, the rural nature of it. I grew up near 8 Napier. We had 8 acres, we had horses, we had goats. Somehow I ended up in Northville High School because that's how the school boundaries are drawn. So I was goat boy. I was the kid from the dirt road. But I loved it. I embraced it. I love this town. And, you know, the values that come from this town, hard work, loyalty, all that is part of this community, and that's what helped shape me. I was taught that by my parents. My mom was a nurse at Children's Hospital in Detroit. My dad was a firefighter in Westland. I went out and was told by my dad, you know, your community is about not just what it can do for you, but what you can do for it. And I believe that. So I went out and I educated myself, and I'm now an officer for the state of Michigan. And I've been DNR. So I see the same preservation side that you guys do. I'm a DNR officer, so I have an amazing job, but I don't have an amazing paycheck. My dad has made me an offer to sell his back 4 acres to me, so that me, that woman you just saw here, our little girl, and our little boy that's due this fall could possibly build a house. Run the numbers and look at a private drive. There's absolutely no way I can afford a private drive. But if this goes through, then it's a driveway. And I know that it's changing, you know, some of this stuff, but I'm not trying to change the community. I want it the same way. And I'm trying to put a house on 4 acres. I don't see that I'm, you know, putting up a mobile home. I don't see that I'm doing some of this stuff. And I see you guys, you know, kind of shaking your head, and I see where you're coming from, but I think there may be certain instances where this may help certain people. I know it will help me.
Were you talking about a private road or private drive?
It doesn't have the road frontage because it is the narrower lot. Mm-hmm. So it would have to be a driveway, not a private road.
There's a difference.
That's my understanding. Yeah. And the one that the current ordinance requires me to have is cost prohibitive to me being able to kind of build my dream here. So I just wanted to kind of at least show one other side of it, and I totally understand your guys' side. So that's my piece, and thank you all.
Years ago, I forget what year it was, my brother built a house in the back of the property. At that time, he wanted to put a driveway, a long private driveway in, okay? The township would not let him. They made him go the big full easement just to get back to his house. Now, if this thing goes through, would his driveway fall back into this? Or would it have to stay as it is?
We don't even know because we haven't discussed it all yet. So I'm sorry, I can't answer. So we're just gonna have to go through.
I'm just talking about that, when he wanted to put a driveway in.
Sure, and that's what we want to hear. We want to hear everybody's individual circumstances. So we can discuss the whole thing.
Part of the answer would be there still will always be required easement, deeded easement to any property, whether it's a shared driveway or a private road. So the easement is required. It's just to what degree do you have to build the road itself? You build it to the private road, or can you build it 30-foot wide or 24-foot wide as a driveway as opposed to building a full private road? So the easements are required no matter
Thanks,
what.
Augie. Well, for what this man wants, I would agree with, okay? Well, for the people that want to put a long driveway in, to get away from putting, a big E-way in there, just so they put homes all over the place, I think you better watch that.
Well, and we're gonna ask all those questions. Because I will tell you, I know we've been beat up in our first 21 minutes. But
Oh, I
I
don't
can
think you've been beat up.
guarantee you that we have a lot of the same questions that you have. That's why it wasn't expected to be a public hearing until at least we got a lot of things cleared up and got some sufficient information for you to evaluate.
Yeah, but I don't think you're beat up tonight.
Okay.
Just for clarification, Madam Chair,
Yes.
the reason it's here is because the board is reviewing the whole topic. And because of it being a change in ordinance and all, it needs to come before us.
Sure.
So the board is also reviewing all of this as well. So as a matter of procedure, all of the language that's going to be changed has been already approved by and authored by our planner and our attorney. And this is why they felt that it's necessary by the rule that there be a public hearing. So we inherited this because there's, other group in the township, the trustees that are looking at it. And that's why we're doing this. Easy enough.
Mr. Walsey.
Yeah, two quick questions. I certainly sympathize with this gentleman here. So when many of us built our homes in the township, including myself, we followed all the rules. We did our homework. We made sure who could build around us, and if there was certain pieces that were landlocked that couldn't be built. So to change the rules now, and I sympathize with this gentleman, wouldn't be fair to everybody else that played by the rules. In regard to the impervious surface argument, I don't think that's a fair argument at all. You think about once you build a home on a piece of property, how many impervious surfaces are you creating with the house, the outbuildings, all the other structures, the aprons, the driveways that go along with it? How intrusive is a house to a land in opposition to a driveway? That's much more, has much more of an impact on the property. So consider that too. Thank you very much.
I have one
Yes,
part
sir.
to that. You said those who did their homework. As far as I know, this ordinance was passed in 1994. When we purchased our property, it was 1991, and there was not any restrictions on that. Am I correct in saying that? The ordinance that was passed in 94. The same week?
1994 originally, yeah.
So in our way, that was, my dad's future planning. So he didn't know that ordinance was going to go in.
I believe it was before then, because I believe my brother built his house in 1990, and they forced him to do that.
I just know the ordinance that they
No.
sent to me was from 94, so
No,
I don't know if there was a
1981, I
previous
think they
one.
forced him to do that.
Right, and we'll discuss that when we get into it. Does anyone else? Mrs. Hamilton?
Yeah, we just heard that rules can't change because it's not fair to people. Rules change all the time. U of M's talking about giving free tuition to kids whose parents don't make enough money to encourage more kids to go to school. I have a son that has multiple degrees from U of M, and we paid for every hour that he took. rules change all the time because we understand that they need to. They need to be flexible to reflect our society. I'm almost certain I heard that we shouldn't allow any more houses to the community because the people that are here are here. One of the fundamental rights of land ownership is the right to develop your land. And it goes back to medieval times in England where many of our land use laws come from. And so, yes, a home creates impervious surface, and that was not my comment. My comment was that if I'm going to have a private drive versus a private road, which I believe is the issue that I was discussing, because I believe it's very apropos for what you're considering, that a private drive creates less impervious surface than a private road. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to clarify my comments. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just as a point of information, ordinance 94-2 was effective on May 14th of 94.
Also, as a point of clarification, also in regards to what you said, Linda, that in some cases when a new ordinance is put in effect, sometimes people are grandfathered too. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's retroactive to them because it can be grandfathered depending on the language of the ordinance. And, you know, and for your situation, private drive, shared drive, is a lot less complicated than a private road and a lot less expensive. So I just wanted to make that clear.
The way it's currently written,
Yeah.
I'm required to have a private road.
Right, right.
There's no way I can afford.
Mr. Hill, you've been so patient.
One of the things that concerns me about the move on whether it's private roads or private drives is, particularly if you're going to private drives because you're going to try and save people considerable costs, which I think is a very good thing, is that I've been involved heavily in some legal battles in my time here over responsibilities for shared owned driveways. And I think there needs to be probably some code of conduct put together by the township. So anyone doesn't turn to litigation to try and get, you know, who's responsible for maintenance, who's responsible for clearing in snow, etc. But one of the biggest problems I had is I had a neighbour who was extremely wealthy, whose idea of a driveway was somewhat different than my driveway, what I thought my driveway should be, which was just a means to get to my house. And she basically commissioned the work on the drive and then sent me a bill. Now, we ended up sorting it out as friends in the end, but getting there was actually very painful, both financially and emotionally. And I would just like to try and avoid this in whatever route this takes and in the ordinance changes. The other thing was the materials you use for if you go down a private drive. I think there are some materials, and it's not so much you've got to have it, but I think there should be some guidance as well as how you construct a drive, a private driveway, to make it permeable, using probably, let's say, some of the DuPont materials, the honeycomb materials, and things like that. So really guidances, because apart from anything else, you're talking about sending fire engines down there, down these driveways. They've got to turn around. And I'm telling you quite categorically, it's been a nightmare on my property off Clement Road. UPS lorries going off the edge and things like that. It's easy things to underestimate, but it's also a way of trying to get contractors that are bidding for this work to get their acts together. Or how do you make a private driveway? Because this isn't some farm track you're building, but this is something that can be produced very low cost, but is actually A, permeable, and B, able to sustain the traffic that comes down on an average lifetime. And I'll shut up now.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, my name's Ray Bischoff. I'm a 20-year-plus resident of the township.
Bischoff?
Bischoff, Bischoff. And I have a situation that touches on every one of the perspectives that I've heard here tonight. I'm not kidding you. Here's what I got. I got a 7-acre parcel that is back behind an existing road. I purchased a 10-acre parcel, split the 3-acre parcel in the house off, right at the time that Pat Hagman was handing off the reins to Bill DeGroot. I don't know how many of you may remember those times, or whatever else we're talking about, the existing or the former zoning administrators. So what I have is a situation whereon if the private driveway ordinance was amended, I could simply build one house in the back, keeping with the rural character and the limited development situation. Or if it's not approved, my only choice would be to put in a private road with deceleration lane and so forth to build the 3 homes that I would be allowed to do, and I do have the 66-foot wide easement to do it. And quite honestly, that's not my preference, but it would be my only option if the private street, or the private driveway rather, ordinance does not get approved. So in other words, not approving this is going to create and going to cause more homes to come to town if I don't have that option. Does that make sense?
It's always something.
Build more money.
Well, I'm not going to let the property go.
I wouldn't let them go, y'all. Do what you gotta do.
I'm just saying, if I can do it as a private driveway, I would have the option of building one, estate-sized home in the back, as opposed to putting in a private road with all that goes with it, and I would have the option of putting 3 homes in as opposed to the one.
Same thing happened with my brother.
Okay.
They forced him to do that.
Did anyone else have any comments?
Madam Chair, point of information for Mark's question. In the ordinance, if the board approves it after our review, there shall be a maintenance agreement required by the ordinance between the parties, and that shall be registered with the county.
It's required for the split.
So it's required, and it includes all maintenance, all repair, all snow and ice removal, and so forth. So it's specific.
Yes, it actually goes as part of the agreement, as part of the split application. So you have to put all that language in there that goes with the property. It's not necessarily with the owner, it goes with the property.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Thank you.
People have learned. Yeah.
Mr. Walsey?
Yes, I think one of the key elements here, there are some parcels in our township, numerous ones, that are so narrow that even if they complied with our current ordinances, there wouldn't be a place for a driveway. There's no place for a 66-foot wide easement to develop the property in the back. And the only way that they could possibly develop the back 40 or the back whatever was an extension or a shared driveway. And again, it goes back to the fact that people, they did their due diligence. They had an expectation when they purchased that piece of property that there would be no development there based on the current ordinances, so you would change all that in that regard. And this gentleman's, the way he's set up, it sounds like he could develop it right now with a private driveway going back there and develop it. He's always said that.
Not a driveway.
Private road. He has that right. What I'm speaking about is these narrow pieces that don't have that they don't have room for that. And that would create a whole different situation. What he has isn't changing the thing. He has the current right to do, to build those houses back there, just follow the current ordinances.
That is exactly right. I do have that option, but I also want to draw attention to the commission that there was a time that the 1994 threshold that when Pat Hagman was the zoning administrator, he granted me permission to develop this back 7 acres using a shared driveway. And we cited the neighbors to the immediate west of this piece of property that did exactly as he was suggesting. And I was granted a split and was told that I could either put one home with the shared driveway back there or 3 homes that would require the private road. So there has been some prior precedent prior to 2004.
The 3 homes that you're referring to are because of the actual lot sizes, the 7 acre split 3 ways, is that what you're saying then?
It would be, that's
Okay,
exactly
so
right.
that's how
I
you're
don't
getting
have
the
the,
3. Okay.
you know, it requires the road frontage or whatever else, but
Thank you.
and everything that goes with that.
Any other public comments? Mr. Horton?
When I came here, M14 wasn't there. So everything has got better and there's more people coming out here. So we passed a resolution according to what they said in 1994, so you couldn't build those on the small lots. I don't see any reason why people, like the gentleman over there, he planned on building a house and because of the ordinance, he was shut down. I don't think that's fair. Because he had anticipation from his father that he would get a piece of property to build a nice house on for his wife and child. And I don't like the idea of, I've got mine, but you can't have yours.
That is in large part what my argument is as well.
And that's exactly what's been happening since I've been here since 1968. I got mine, but you can't have yours.
There seems to me that there was a prior interpretation of the zoning ordinance that is different than,
Yes.
Yeah, I think we'll get to that as soon as we get done with the public comment.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, you sure?
Okay, in respect to, I think, Elaine, you're saying, one of the things that can very easily happen is actually, and I empathize with Mr. Walton with your comments, but can very easily happen is actually the other way around, overdevelopment, because we're forcing people to put in these private drives on a 30, 40 acre parcel and forcing them to make as many lots as possible to justify the cost of that private road. To justify the cost of that private road, so it's going to drive the number of developments up and the number of lots up. So I think in my homework that I've been doing in the past, since the last meeting, I've looked at other communities that have allowed up to 4 lots off of a shared driveway in order to keep the lot size, instead of being down to 2 acres, they've established rules like, well, it's a 5 acre lot if you're going to use a shared driveway, or other things to help reduce the overdevelopment, the amount of development. So those are all things that can be added in here. And I do believe that a shared driveway still requires a fairly large easement. So I don't know that we're going to necessarily take some of these super narrow lots and make them accessible for a back. You know, I've seen the ones you're talking about. They're 10 acres and there's, 160 foot in the front and half a mile deep. It's 10 acres. It's like, okay, there's not much you can do with that.
Yeah.
And I like you have also done my homework, because I look at property in this town to see what's around me, what can be around me. But part of that homework does involve the fact that even though it's not there today, it could be there someday. If it's out of my control, it's out of my control, and I have to accept that, as my current house is right now. It was out of my control, it changed, it developed different than I anticipated, and I'm now looking for another lot in Salem to build on. That might not be quite the same as, I'm doing more homework. A little better than I did last time, I hope. But in any event, the whole idea or the concept is that we're trying to make sure that we don't encourage overdevelopment by forcing people to, if they got to put in that private road, as Hamilton said, I have the right to develop my property. Well, if we don't allow her, give her an example, to put in a shared drive, then she's maybe forced to get the money she needs to get out of that property by selling it to a developer who's going to drop a road down there and on 80 acres throw in 35 lots or something like that. So now we got 35 homes instead of maybe the 10 that she wanted to put in there. So it can go against us as much as it can go for us, and I think it probably will go against us more than it will go for us. And I think the whole idea of moving forward on this is to give the planners some opportunity to start looking at, in the public hearings, to get the information so that we don't end up with rules and regulations like too narrow easements or other things that we talked about here, like maybe we want to throw in there 5 acres if we're going to do the shared driveway. We can't do less than 5 acres for a shared lot. Or things that we can put in here to help control that, and this is how we get that information through the public hearing. So if we really don't want this private, or shared driveway to cause overdevelopment, then maybe one of the things we want to look at adding on is a larger lot size, possibly, as a means of doing that. So there's other things that we can do to help control overdevelopment. And I certainly hope we never see the day that this looks like Canton.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice. Yes, Mr. Hill?
Just a quick one. Is the picture really as bad as this, it's showing 180 plots? Because could we overlay what's likely to perk?
There you go.
Okay. Before we even get to this picture, I need to explain it to you.
Oh, right.
Because it's not exactly what you think it is.
Oh, right.
So, but we just wanted to share what we had, so. Any other comments in our public hearing? Okay. We have a motion to close.
I make a motion to close the public hearing on private roads / private drives at 7:18.
8:18.
Close at 8:18. Do we have a second?
Excuse me, 8:18.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay. The public hearing portion is now closed. All good questions, good information. This map that you have that we're sharing with you, this is not anything hardcore written in stone. What this map represents is I asked our planner, because all of this came about, that we're getting people coming in requesting shared driveways all over the place. And I said, what do you mean all over the place? I said, well, what are we talking about? How many? Well, there's lots that are back behind, isolated, don't have access to roadway. And I said, how many lots? A lot. And I said, can we put a number to it? And he says, with the information that we have, is there some sort of algorithm or something that you could do to find some sort of an estimate? Are we talking about 25? Are we talking about 500? I have no idea. So what he did is he said, and I'll read you the email, he says, Pam, you asked how many parcels the proposed private shared drive amendment may affect. We did a rough analysis, looking at the number of lots that were 5 to 10 acres with a minimum road frontage of 216. Without looking at each individual parcel, because you'll see there are a bunch of skinny ones on there, Mr. Walsey. Without looking at each individual parcel, these are the basic dimensions that he believes will be necessary to utilize a shared private drive to allow for an additional home on the back part of a parcel. Not all of these parcels will necessarily qualify. And I expect any bigger parcels would likely be able to be split more times using a private road, which we also discussed, if an owner was interested in developing. That said, based on this rough analysis, if a shared drive were utilized on each of these identified parcels, we may be talking about an additional 300 homes spread throughout the township. So that's what this picture is, because my response to him, and I'm going to read it to you, is, Paul, thank you for looking into the analysis. I have one more question. How many parcels were split that were not supposed to be split? We had some situations due to interpretation in the past. New zoning administrator, new planner, new interpretation. My concern that the ordinance was written to minimize population growth and help maintain Salem's agricultural and open spaces. So despite what has been said out there, we are not here to overdevelop. It's exactly the opposite. We're here to support the master plan. By changing this, does it go against the purpose of the original ordinance was intended? Salem residents consistently communicate their views of maintaining the rural character. Would changing this ordinance go against this vision in regards to the master plan? If not specifically, it may go against the spirit of the master plan. And look forward to discussing this at our next meeting. So that's where we are, and that's where we're coming from. So I hope that clarifies some of your concerns, that we're here just to run this driveway through because Pam Merle's got a parcel somewhere that she wants to develop 182 homes somewhere. She doesn't, okay? And the reason that we all live here, we, meaning all of us, are the same as yours. But it seems like no matter, and just, there's my comment, no matter what rule we make, it's going to impact somebody negatively. No matter what rule we create to protect you guys, somebody's going to go around it. So we really need, there's no rush on this. We really need to look at it thoroughly and assess it, hear what everybody has to say, and think about it. Personally, I'm not big on just changing ordinances. We need to look at unintended consequences for everybody, and we've heard a number of them. So if we do something for you guys, it impacts him. If we do something for him, it impacts you, no matter what we do. So we need to be very respectful of the decisions that we make and the names that are going to go in voting. And we're glad you're here. We're glad that, I wish there were a few more people, but I think we have a good picture of it. And it doesn't mean that this is going to be done and solved tonight. Matter of fact, I highly doubt it. So, it's a close chance. And the snowball will probably get bigger. So, that being said, this is just, it's just a rough draft, but I thought it was interesting to share with you so we know what we're talking about. But he talks about not all these parcels will be eligible. So,
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
My parcel's on here. I looked and saw. I have a little over 10 acres. I would not be able to put, I have 600 feet of road frontage. But most of that 600 feet is recognized wetlands. So I would never be able to put anything in another driveway at all. So my property is off.
Oh, gee.
I can't because it's
I-
recognized wetlands.
I actually hate to correct you, but I believe you actually can, as long as you add the same amount of wetlands elsewhere on the same property.
Probably can.
Okay, we're not going to go down that road. We're not going to go down
But then
that
that driveway would just slowly sink down into it anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
I would just like to make one comment, if it's okay?
Yeah.
The 216 foot, just so we're all clear on that, is the 150 that road frontage that's minimum, plus 66-foot easement. 216. So we're not talking about putting in this narrow little easement for a drive. That is still a wide easement for that driveway. So again, I don't think we're trying to add a lot of development or whatever. We're just trying to have a financial option as opposed to putting in a large road and maybe forcing someone to put in because they pay for a large road, more lot. Back to your example, putting in more lots to pay for that road. It's not necessarily allowing somebody to develop that really narrow piece of property that's only 166 feet wide to start with, because you need 216 feet based on the planners to do that. The 150 foot that's still required for road frontage, plus another 66 foot for the driveway easement. So just an example of trying to make sure that we're not overdeveloping those small, narrow pieces. And I think Paul had mentioned there's a number of landlocked pieces right now, there's maybe 7 acres that they're viable, but they need access through a driveway. They do have access this way with a shared driveway, as opposed to paying $150,000 for a private road.
Okay.
I would just like to start with getting some, I guess definitions may be clarified.
I think we need to start there.
Let's just slowly, quietly, easily, for my sake, go over what's the difference between a driveway, a shared driveway, private road, and I think we all know what a standard road is as we're looking at it here today. Then just some other comments. Very well put. Just because you can access the road, the piece of land, does not mean you're going to get a septic field approval. We don't do perk tests anymore, but we go out and test. Does not mean you get septic field approval. I don't think there's really much problem finding water around here, so you usually don't come in. You also have to have a well to make this split. As for comment on fire truck access, I honestly don't see much difference between a person with just a long, narrow driveway going back to a single house that a fire truck has to go back and access, as compared to a shared driveway that goes back. It's no better or worse for that fireman that has to turn around a truck. There's nothing saying now that if the guy's got a 2,000-foot driveway, he's got to have a place for a fire truck to turn around in the end. So whether that's a shared driveway or a standard driveway, I don't think that's actually relevant to this argument. Good thing to think of, but I don't think it's actually relevant to the argument.
What are the problems they found? Because I was on a very, sorry.
Excuse me, I think what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go through all the planning commissions and because we have a gazillion questions too, that our planner can probably help us out and clarify, and then you'll be able to hear it all. And then, of course, more questions will come up. So if you have.
The other one that, after we go through just the quick definitions of what these different features are, these different, what they look like in our mind, what it takes to make one, is, can we clarify why this ordinance was put in to begin with? I mean, it went before a planning commission, there was concerns, there were issues, there were complaints, there were problems, there were, outcries or something saying, hey, we need to do something like this that restricts these shared driveways, that restricts, I think that we call them lollipop lots and things like that, or bowling alley lots. And what was going on that said, hey, we need to slow this down, that we're actually looking at possibly reversing some of those aspects. And if anyone can help with the history, which is a great thing to understand, that would be fantastic.
I had that same question. Okay, so let's start with the definitions. If you can clarify what a shared driveway is and looks like, and the road and a regular driveway.
So I only have the marked up version right now, but from what I understand, the existing ordinance differentiates a driveway and a private road as a driveway being an access that only serves one residence, whereas a private road can serve multiple residences but has to be built to the technical standards that are in the private road ordinance.
The county standards.
County standards, and we have the private road ordinance here as well that I believe references the county standards as well. But there are no engineering standards really for a private driveway except for the actual access point with the main road. So you can have it, you can build it a banner road, you can build it gravel, you can build it really however you want, whereas a private road needs to be approved typically by a planning commission, and it has to meet engineering standards.
Okay, so those three things, we call them driveway, private road, and the third one you just said shared driveway.
Well, and the shared driveway, what we're proposing now is still the same as the driveway definition we have now, where there's no engineering standards, but now instead of only serving one parcel, it can serve two.
I'm not worried either way what we define them as much as I'm just wanting to know what we define them as. When they end up being fine, I just want to understand that we have common language right here as we start. Thank you.
Okay.
So shared driveway, no additional specs beyond driveway, just simply shared.
And I believe the markup version said a maximum of 2 homes.
Right. That's what the new proposed language is suggesting with a private driveway.
Dwellings.
Can I help clarify that a minute?
Sure.
Or at least ask the question? I think, Bart, a private, or a driveway is for a lot that's 150-foot wide on the road. That's a driveway. If you're putting in a shared driveway with an access or an easement to a rear lot, that's a shared driveway and has to be
Picture 2 mailboxes at the road front.
So, it's potential that the shared driveway is not used by the front house, possibly, that there's a second driveway, but I'm not sure of that.
Okay, so we are not just talking shared driveway, we're talking an easement through a front parcel to access a rear parcel. Okay,
Correct.
so we are talking two additional items here.
Yeah, the shared driveway, this is predominantly to put in shared driveways, which will have an access, either, there's all language in there for the easement and the part of the deed and the deed restrictions and all, how to take care of it. So it's to access a second lot. Typically to the rear, or it might be, there might be, I don't know what other, you know, again, we'd have to find all the different criteria from planners, how many different situations, if I had 200 foot of road frontage, I can't have two lots, but if I have enough, that can I have 150, you know, what can I do to make two houses on there? So I don't know how many different scenarios we're looking at here.
So it's two separate cases, we're not just talking shared driveway.
It's predominantly, the whole idea here is to put in shared driveways to access those parcels that are inaccessible, or larger parcels of land that, where maybe family wants to break it up, or somebody's doing something to allow access to the rear, where there's, again, 216 feet of road frontage and at least 5 to 10 acres.
I find that interesting, because I may have to think about this more. I may retract what I say right now. That the lollipop lots, where you basically just have a long, narrow leading up to the large piece of parcel in the back, you know, those aren't allowed by our language anymore, unless by some reason they actually have the 150-foot road frontage and they're above 10 acres, to which then they can be, you know, abnormal shaped, I think is the wording they use, piece of property. Going to a parcel that's in the back, where it's just a single access driveway that's going through on a variance, you know, completely, you know, 100% going through some other tax ID piece of parcel. I think that's almost like one step worse than the lollipop lots. Does that make sense? I mean, at least if it's one of these lots, hey, you own the land, that's it. There's no legal description between, but when you own that back piece of property, it's just this person up front doesn't have any use for that. It's not a shared driveway at all, but they have signed away an easement to go through their front property to allow you to move your driveway through there. You know, let me tell you how expensive that would be if someone wanted to buy 66 feet to go through my property. They sooner just, you know, right, you could restrict that financially right then and there, because that's private sale, that's private agreement and everything like that. So I think we have to be mindful of how those things interplay.
And what was your third question? Because then you had a comment.
What was the history? How did this come to be that we are where we are, and now we're looking at taking a step back or something like that?
I have so many questions. Does anyone up here know why there was a restriction, the ordinance to restrict? That's one of my questions too.
I may have a little bit of background on that.
Okay.
There may have been an advisory opinion from the Washtenaw County Road Commission. There was a time that Washtenaw County sought to limit the number of curb cuts on any of the given streets and roads. And as a result of that, they deemed to be safer with fewer curb cuts. And I don't know, you know, what the legalities fell in line with that, but I do know that there was pressure from the road commission.
Well, I think it was, yeah, I believe, if I understand it, it was one, you know, safety-related curb cuts.
Yes.
Absolutely. Less access is coming out to a road.
Okay.
If you can have two houses coming out one driveway, I believe it is much better look than having two driveways coming out from two houses. You know, these people are amenable and they can agree on that. And then also, well, we can go into that later.
I was instructed on that once upon a time. That's just for the sake of history, I guess.
Sure.
I'd like a point of information, please. Some of these lots will never have a house on it.
That's
Some
right,
of them-
that's what we said.
And some of them got houses on them already.
That's,
So he's not
that's for
really-
another meeting.
He's just counting indiscriminately, because they've got a lot next to me.
Yeah, this is a swag, we're not taking this as law, please.
No,
I mean,
there's a lot less.
I think that
than what
was
it said.
stated.
There's a lot less than what it said.
I will also say that on the other side of that, the less Kirk does anything, I think everybody would agree that as for the rural character, we would much rather drive down any one of these roads and see 10 mailboxes instead of 20. 30 instead of 60, pick whatever number you want. But I mean, when it comes to that, we would. Now, there's nothing stopping that person with a 20-acre parcel with boatloads of frontage to sit there and just run those back like crazy. Front one, back one, front one, back one, front one, back one, front one, back one, shared drive, and just driveways, no nothing. So that when we talk about how far it could go on the extreme side of allowing this, please keep that in mind as well. So when this doesn't show 20-acre parcels, let me tell you, if I had 20-acre parcel with 1,260 feet of road frontage, I'd know what I'd be doing right now. Front property, back property, front property, back property, front property, back property. Go all the way, I could probably even do more than that.
Did you have any other questions?
I love this stuff. We'll go for later.
You'll
but
think
yeah,
of more as we go, right?
I'm sure.
Mr. Fernandez, did you have some questions that you had for the planner or anything you want to
No,
discuss?
I've read through. Of course,
Your-
I forgot to bring my computer so the print's tinier. But
But
I've read it through and it looks like they have, the attorney and the planner did a good job of safeguarding everything. Looked very good. With the restrictions and requirements and the, deed restrictions that have to be filed and everything else. I think it's very well written.
Mr. Ruggieri?
And just for a point of information, townships share when they change their ordinances. We get notices that other townships have done certain things to their ordinances, their master plan and whatnot. Some of the other townships around have allowed up to 4 homes on a private drive. Just wanna
Drive or
make-
private?
On a private drive.
Shared
Shared drive. Shared drive.
Okay.
Okay. Shared drive.
Maybe.
Shared drive, okay. The other thing is, as far as procedure goes and all the comments made about this planning commission up here, we are an advisory board when it comes to this. We try to come up with language and look at all the pitfalls and everything and come up with the best language that we can come up with to accommodate the citizens of the township. But this goes to the board for approval, and I just want people to understand that, because it seems like there were some insinuations that this planning commission was going to do something that was harmful. Last meeting, if those people that were here at the last meeting would have been here, they would have heard that we had quite a discussion on this. And our direction that we gave to the planner was to investigate this, to find out about the affected parcels, and to come back to the planning commission at the next meeting and apprise us of what the situation is. That's what we left the last meeting with. When we come here tonight, even though we have a public hearing, we're still here to discuss, not assume what we're going to do up here. We're up here to discuss with the township residents what their ideas are. We're to ask questions of our professional planner and try to come up with some positive suggestions for the board. That's what we're all about up here, and I just wanted to try to clarify that. That's all I have to say.
Do you have any additional questions on?
No, I did all my homework. I pretty much understand all of it.
Let me ask the board, kind of play devil's advocate here, ask the rest of the planning commission. Say Mr. Bischoff's situation, he's got a picture, you had 7 acres in back of 3 separate, 3 or 4 3-acre
Yeah,
parcels?
it's a 300 and some foot width. It's a 3-acre, and it's along 7 Mile Road. There's the 3, I have 3 acres and then 7 acres behind it. I have a 66-foot wide easement, and it all is wide enough to put that private road, not driveway.
You already have the easement.
The easement's already recorded, it's already done.
Oh,
yes.
okay, okay. So,
But this, if this were to be approved, I wouldn't necessarily have to build the private road. I could just simply put the driveway in. And quite honestly, by the time, we're talking about 3 lots or 1 lot that would take place in my scenario here. And the cost is essentially the same. By the time I spent $150,000 to put in the private road, I could sell the 1 lot for, you know, whatever it is.
I guess, I mean, and you can't, certainly can't promise things like this, but I guess if someone came to us and said, hey, back in 1990, before this ever happened, you know, I have this piece of property. I have no way to get to it or whatever, I own these other pieces of property. Can I get a variance to be able to put a driveway through so I can access the piece of property? Is that in the language? Okay,
It's,
so,
yes,
so
it's
let's
in the
just.
private drive
let's just-
lasting
let's just-
variance.
Let's freeze on that. So there's a pre-existing condition of someone owning a piece of property and can't necessarily get to it. So if we put this into law, into the ordinance, then we're basically saying, we're not just going to get with those pre-existing conditions, we're going with anything coming forward. So I'm wondering if there's, you know, anybody coming forward, walking into this township now, they're buying with the current ordinance. They're saying, this is what the story is, I know what it is when I'm walking into it. Anybody before this, May 14th, 1994 is, oh, I may be jammed, or I may have some paperwork that could justify it if I go forward, or whatever. But I guess we kind of, I'd like to look at where options are with coming into the timeline. I mean, if this could be a, hey, if you bought your property pre-94 or something like that, and by the way, you need access, please come to us, let's talk, you know, talk to us, and we'll look at, you know, we can certainly look at doing a variance so you can access the property. We don't have to necessarily change the ordinance. And I honestly don't know which way I'm looking at this now. I'm just trying to get thoughts on both sides, quite honestly, guys. So.
Yeah, the section 13 on variances says that any applicant may apply for a variance from any provision of the ordinance by filling out an application for variance with the township clerk. Township board may attach reasonable conditions in granting any variance from any provision. And one thing to be said about someone going before a ZBA board would be that all their neighbors and surrounding them would have notice, and they would be able to have a voice in what they think about the person wanting to
And
put
that's
it
the way,
in.
that's the way this commission and the board could move forward right now today without changed language. That's, I mean, obviously, anybody can appeal anything. So, okay. I actually walked over and looked at all your notes while you stepped out and said, you just seal this, and oh, that's a good one, yeah.
It's either
I
candy
did.
or notes.
That's the way I roll.
Okay. No, I'm glad we're on the same page. There's lots of them, though. I got 2 pages. Okay. TJ.
Did you find out how many people have come in the last 6 months or so requesting?
No, yes, I did not.
And because, you know, the note from our planner says there's lots of people, but I just wondered how many that is.
Yeah. You didn't get back to me on that.
Did you hear anything
I
about
unfortunately did
it?
not hear a number on that.
This is secondhand information.
I would not share it then. Even fishing, you're better off.
But I am saying that there is activity, and I heard about one of the piece of property I was looking at, someone wanted to put 8 houses on this piece of property. It's like, you can't put 8 houses with the wetlands and everything else on there. There's a lot of pressure to you know, from outside people buying property to try and buy property, thinking they're gonna be able to develop it and whatnot. So the calls are coming in. The calls are coming in, and that's why this is on the table right now, is to the more information, the more stuff we have.
I did ask him again, but he's out of the office, so I'm sure he'll get back to me and provide us that information at a
Let's be
later
honest,
date.
look at the surrounding areas. You look at the townships around us and how they're developing. Some are developing just at excruciating speeds. And here sits Salem, you know, and we should anticipate this type of attention. When people asking how far can you push the envelope of what can be done.
And we as a community are certainly feeling the residual effects of planning in our neighboring townships, especially in the morning. You know, the other morning, you know, I now live on Oak Knoll right off Curtis, so I said, oh, this is sweet, man, I'll just pull out on Curtis, boom, down North Territorial on the highway. And as I approached North Territorial, the traffic was backed up darn at least a quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, and that's not bad.
It's worse.
And it's worse. And if you watch the traffic patterns where they're coming from, Angle Road, right, you're seeing more traffic on Angle, I'm sure now. And then coming on to Curtis, it's just getting crazy here. 7 Mile backs up all the way beyond Salem Farms in the afternoons. And why? It's because people allow enormous development without infrastructure improvements. You know, it's all about lineal feet. A car is so long, a truck is so long. You throw more of them on that highway is so long. And we're feeling it. So, I don't know what we do. Require the other townships to build a tunnel.
A toll road.
Yes.
Toll road.
Toll road.
Salem Toll Road. That's right.
That's fun. TJ, do you have more questions?
Multiple pages, so.
That's okay. We can always come back to you if we
Yeah.
need them there. Okay. Mr. Reed.
I could sit on both sides of it, again, but it's our responsibility to try and make sure that we cover as many bases as we can. I would like to ask the planner to show us graphically examples so that we have a better picture. I like pictures. Things that could happen or might happen, or what are we trying to address here. But on the other side of the coin, I do want to make note that if we do nothing, sometimes that gives people the chance to fight and get more than what we want to have happen if we don't allow, if our language is tight and clean across the board and have options or choices, if we, so to speak, landlock some parcels, someone's out of, you know, and again, I'm not suggesting everybody wants to do lawsuits, but someone's out to put undue pressure on us outside the ZBA to make changes that we don't want. But if we have certain things in our process to be able to apply for the variances and whatnot, then it might stop some of that pressure from happening.
I believe at least what I was saying with an appeal is that there is a path right now. You know, for someone to go into litigation or, you know, lawsuit and, you know, call over your lawyer and come to us right now, as opposed to whatever it costs to apply for a variance with the zoning board of appeal and go through that process, I think you're moving the decimal, you know, 2 times.
It's not the 7 acre
It's always
parcels,
been there.
it's
The path has
Otherwise,
always
it's not
been.
being used.
It's always been there.
It's not the 7 acre parcels that have the attorneys, it's the 196 acre parcels.
Well, I understand. And I think there we stand rock solid with a private road and right like that. But, I mean, I believe our duty is to make sure people have a path.
Correct.
They have a path. They have something there that's reasonable. It's kind of, I can't say I know which way. I've lived on both sides of this, you know.
Right.
I've gone through this. I've lived it. So.
I think we're all looking for a little bit more information to understand.
Yeah, I am really very interested in the history and why it is, because if we miss one nuance of this is why they did that, and we don't catch it this time, reverse it, guarantee it, we'll find it really quickly. Because someone else will remember.
Yeah, we'll add to the comment about the safety, health, and welfare issue and the number of driveway cuts. That is a big item, and it is a traffic safety
There are
item.
absolutely fantastic arguments and views and points on that, on both sides. Really are.
TJ, being a ZBA member, in the variance issue, the time I see from last fall to now, there's only two requests for a variance on a driveway, which is surprising. That's only two.
But it is in the language.
Yes, it is, you know,
People
people
can do it.
have the opportunity to come in and get a variance. My only other thing is the issue with shared driveways. I believe we have one right down here on 6 Mile, just past the church, if I'm not mistaken. And I brought it up, I says, how did that get allowed in the hamlet, where two houses have one culvert to go in off of 6 Mile? I said, how, you know, why would anybody want that, especially, you know, so close to the road? I don't understand that one, how that happened. And that to me is shared because there's two homes using the same culvert to get into their house and their garage and that.
You bring up an interesting point. A shared driveway doesn't necessarily have to be a special case for access. It could be just, maybe there's two houses, each of them having, let's just make it easy, say each of them having 250-foot road frontage. By this language, would we sit there and say, yeah, if you want to share a driveway, have just one access to the road and split, this one goes to your garage and this one goes to your garage? I guess, you know, that's something to be considered as well.
This is very close
Well,
to
I know
6 Mile.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
My question was, why wasn't there a fence put down between the two property lines? So that's your half of the driveway, this is my half.
Because they like to share.
I know, I can't see shared driveways myself, but the rest of it, I feel for people that are, have issues with smaller lots or what have you in the back and other parcels that weren't planned for, and yet I feel that
Kind of like brought up the pre-existing before.
you know, we have to do something, especially if they're larger than a 2-acre parcel or what have you, you know. That kind of hurts the person that might have had plans, but now they're not there.
Do you have any additional questions?
No, I looked at the master plan this afternoon and I was just curious if anyone else, you know, what your opinion is as to the compatibility to the master plan with these potential changes to the zoning ordinances, or the ordinance, not zoning.
Well, the master plan says you keep with the current zoning ordinances. Short language. Current zoning ordinances are what they are. There's no lot of hot blocks, there's no shared driveways. So, I guess if the ordinance changes, the master plan still just says reinforce the zoning ordinance. Unless special cases, unless going through zoning board of appeals, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think necessarily the master plan would change now, but when it comes to the language, the essence, the spirit of the master plan, it's the reverse. It's when going from the master plan into the ordinance, and what does the ordinance support? Do they both lean on each other? I go back to Mr. Walsey's comment, which has rung very true. I like reasonable, not maximum use. That was a great comment. It was a great statement. And this is, as small as this may be, this is a very interesting topic, very interesting subject, and the points on both sides, once again, I think are both very strong. This is a fun one, kids.
Thank you for that.
Well, now, I couldn't tell you which way I go on this. I don't know, I'm still thinking about it.
Does anyone else have any other questions? No? I have some questions.
All right.
One of them goes back to definitions. It's my understanding that there were a number of splits of properties that shouldn't have been split. What's the definition of a split and for our township? What are the requirements?
Well, a split has to meet both the Michigan Land Division Act as well as any other ordinances that you have. I don't know if you have a separate land division ordinance, a standalone ordinance or not, but for the Michigan Land Division Act, it has to have access. In order for the township to approve a split, there needs to be access, there needs to be a maximum depth to width ratio of no more than 4 to 1. And it has to meet the lot standards, the minimum lot requirements for the zoning district that it's in. So if you don't have any other.
What was the last thing you said?
It has to meet the standards for the zoning district it's in, for the dimensional, so lot area,
okay.
lot width.
Ratio. Yeah, and that's below, I guess anything above 10 acres and that may go out the window.
Well, there's also the maximum number of splits, there's a chart.
And then if split for residential, anything with the word residential in it, if it's residential agriculture, if it's residential whatever, then it has to also have well approval and septic field approval.
Right, yeah.
Beforehand.
Yeah, before you can, I mean, you can
split for agricultural.
Yeah, but
You
you
can split
can't,
for agricultural, but
you can't
not.
build on it or anything
Right.
unless you have
For
those.
it to be split
right.
as residential, which I believe is what our conversation is here, it also has to have well and septic approval on top of that, county stamp.
And the state has a chart which it's a safety net for the number of splits that a property owner can do within 10 years. So I don't know it offhand, it's kind of complicated, but within 10 years, it depends on how big your property is. If you have a 10-acre parcel, I think you can split it 4 times as long as it meets the ordinance, the zoning ordinance.
It's the number of times you basically approach and ask for something to change. It's not the number of pieces of property.
Well, it's based on your acreage.
Right.
Yeah,
And the minimum acreage, absolutely, but if you start with 80 acres, you can, however many splits this one, then.
Within a 10-year period, right, then it resets.
You can split property and not necessarily build on it.
Right.
So you don't have to have approval for a septic in a well
Only if you're
split.
Only if you're building on it to get the
If
county.
it's residential,
Right.
then yes.
Yes, if you're trying to.
You can split a unbuildable parcel if you want.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
yeah.
But in order to build on it, you have to
Yeah.
have Oakland County or Wayne County Health come out
Right,
and
right,
Washington.
right. I just wanted to.
I'm all over the place, I apologize.
John?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
you know, it's incumbent upon us, we've had the public hearing, that's our duty. And we should be making a recommendation to the board on this. And I would say that any recommendation that we send them should articulate what we heard from the public and their concerns. And if there's any things that any of us here want to change, then I would say that we need to move this forward to the board. And then let the board deliberate over it as well. That's our duty. Our duty is we must
But
make
I
a
still have
recommendation.
questions. I didn't get my turn yet.
Yeah. Well, it's 9 o'clock.
Mrs. Hamilton.
I just wanted to see when you're ready, to excuse me, when you're ready to hear the history, let me know.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have too many more, so let's see. I do have questions. I guess this is more, not questions, but this one's more of a comment. I think that one of my questions were, there are a number of splits that were made that should not have been done. And then people are asking for driveways. What concerns me is that now we're changing the ordinance, which seems to be a huge step to accommodate something that shouldn't have been done. And then it gets to, which I feel would be opening Pandora's box to development and just a kind of a free-for-all, which I think, and I've got 2 points to this, I think it would change the complexion of our township. However, on the other hand, I feel that if somebody had bought property with intent in 1990 or 91 with intentions of doing something with it and waiting for a family to grow up or whatnot, and then things had changed, or there are situations in our township, what's the alternative? What's the avenue? And it sounds like there's a variance. So my thought is, I think we need a better picture of what we have and what we're dealing with before we can make any type of recommendation. And I'm not comfortable putting my name behind something when I have so many questions, I don't even feel like I really even know what I'm looking at yet. And to change an ordinance gonna impact our community really good or really bad. I don't see what the rush is. There is an avenue, use the variance, and I think we should look at this a little bit further and closer and get more information from our planner.
Madam Chair, I would ask that you solicit via email to all of us here to list any questions we have, or comments we have for the planner, so we can submit it to him.
Great idea. Okay, I will do that.
Ask, much like I asked, what was the history that changed this language back in '94? I'd like to ask, what came up that's bringing this up today?
Well, that's what
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
talking
really, I
about,
mean,
the
truly,
whole scope.
what is it? I mean,
And we don't know that.
I don't see people picketing, but, so, I mean, it's tough to dig out. What changed? What
Right.
changed that, all of a sudden 23 years later?
Okay.
That all of a sudden now we're going, hey, we should really think about this.
And some of my,
I think we had inquiries as to private drives and private roads. And so the board took a look at it probably, and the planners, to take a look at it and say, is our language tight? Do we have the right language before we start addressing these different requests? I think that's the intent of us looking at this.
but I would like to know more about what those
Well, I guess maybe.
scenarios are, just like what Bruce had
I
said.
believe Linda Hamilton said that she
Yes,
would
right.
enlighten us on the
Right,
history.
I just want to get through my questions, because sometimes Linda has input on that too. So, and another question would be for the planner is this only for splits that are existing? Like, we're not going to do any more
I think it's what we
inappropriate
decided
splits?
is. It's not necessarily what the planner is saying, it's what we decided is. I mean, he may have an initial language, but we have to be able to have that broader scope of what the options are and bring those forward. He may have an initial language, but certainly we can tweak it or not do anything as we see fit for the township.
And I think this one may have been answered. The language is in this marked up, about the requirements for a private drive, correct? There are going to be some requirements, specs, they're not going to be engineered or?
Well, the way it's written now, there are no required engineering specs for driveways. There are for private roads, but not for driveway, individual driveways or shared driveways.
Okay. And was it I didn't see it in there for shared, did you? Did I misunderstand?
No, there's nothing for
Okay.
there's nothing for, and I mean, my family is going from 2 drivers to 4 drivers in a matter of 2 years. Do I have to improve my driveway because I now have more cars going up and down my driveway? So I'll pretty much say right now, if a shared driveway, if the intent is sit there and make it make the cost so that a person can do it, and all of a sudden you say, oh, well, if you're a shared driveway, all of a sudden you got to put down 6 inches of compacted 22 AA limestone, and over top of that, you got approved road
I
crime.
wasn't thinking of that.
Then we're losing the intent, which leads to my third question. What is our end goal here? Let's get 3 bullet points of how we want to land on this.
And so if we don't have any specs, what about, the fire department, I guess that was my thought. Are there some minimum specs or requirements that we would need or should need?
The intent of limiting it to only one additional split was for this reason. Any more than one parcel or any more than 2 parcels that are accessed with a private or shared driveway, you'd start getting into these questions. And that's one of the reasons why we're limiting it to one additional.
And I think that's
yeah.
I think that's a great place to start. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just for discussion point, that's why we are starting with one additional parcel access from a shared driveway.
Okay, and, I'm sorry, can I just
Go ahead.
finish my
Go ahead.
questions?
Sometime
Just wanna get-
tonight.
You are next, I promise. So I think, let's see, some of my concerns is with the written maintenance plan and whatnot, that is tied to the deed, correct? It's tied to the property, it's not the agreement?
Well, in a private drive, the private drive is quote-unquote equally owned. You know, when you draw a private drive, that private drive covers, touches, has contact with each one of those parcels. If we're talking an easement through someone's property, now what if we're just talking easement, the person, and I'll just throw out the devil's advocate situation, the guy in the back says, I want to asphalt this whole thing, I want to put streetlights up and down it. And we have an agreement to blah, 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 and jointly develop this thing, this shared driveway. And the guy who has the easement says, I don't want that, I don't want Christmas lights going down my driveway in the middle of June, and you're going to watch a moonrise, I think. This is, you know, this is a lot deeper. This is peeling an onion, guys.
Okay, well, that's my written easement and written maintenance, and both my questions were, are those tied to the deed?
Well,
And how does that actually work?
The language as it's written now says that the maintenance agreement has to be recorded with the county.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it's tied to it, but maybe not directly.
The maintenance agreement goes with the tax ID. It is a linked, cohesive document with the tax ID.
It would come up right.
So like, if you were to sit there and say the front piece of property on the road now does an easement, that piece of property would be rezoned, you know, new legal description, right? Not just the perimeter, but now talking about the easement going through, and that document would have to be attached talking about the easement agreement.
Right, well, yes, the easement would be.
And let me remind people, at that point, you can be reassessed.
Okay. Another, I guess, is how this would open the door to future splitting and then saying, you know, is that, I guess, which goes back to the intent of the history of why we did this. We wouldn't have, if the drive, we couldn't have the driveways, therefore it couldn't split. Now we say, okay, well, you can, or shared driveways. Now we say, oh, we have a shared driveway. Then that opens us up the split, which says, which my question is this in keeping with the master plan in regards to open spaces, lower density? So that's my question that I think we've all kind of asked is a certain, I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, to go back to your previous question about whether you could create new lots, I believe the way I interpret it is that you could create one new lot as long as it
Just
meets
one.
these, yes, one new
Okay.
lot in the back, kind of a landlocked parcel, as long as it has these meets these shared driveway requirements.
If a person has 600 foot of road frontage, they could put a shared driveway here, one driveway going to their house, another one going to the back, split the back, run another easement through to the back, run another easement through the back. This guy still has 150 feet, he still has his 2.5 acres, and he's enabled 3 properties in the back. There's, you know, take it to an extreme. What? I'm just,
Right. You're meaning
you know, it's
three-
not
three
saying it's
drive-
allowing one
like
parcel in the
potential
back.
3 driveways.
It's saying you're
6
allowed to share a
properties.
driveway, you're allowed to do easements of 66 feet through to place another driveway to access a piece in the back. So if you got, as I said, you got this piece of property with 600 foot of road frontage, fine, take 66 feet away from it here, take 66 feet away from it here, take 66 feet away from it here, and share a driveway here. Now have 4 more properties in back of a 10-acre property in front.
You need 648 feet.
Huh?
648 feet to do that.
Okay.
No, a numbers guy, excellent. Dan?
Actually, I can prove to you that you don't need that.
Oh, okay.
And on a slight comment on that, a lot of the property is at 632 or something like that, just by the math of the mile being divided up.
Right.
So you may not have, so the typical 632 foot, which is the 20-acre lot, is probably only able to be done twice. I'm just,
Yes, but I guess my point is here is, let's not just think that it's one parcel in a back. You know, there's special cases like crazy, guys, but unless the language says, you know, property owner A in front can only do one instance to allow another property. They're not allowed multiple, they're allowed one. Then that stops that. Then that stops it from going crazy. But without that language, it doesn't.
That's why I want to see some diagrams and some language that allows us to potentially limit that or stop somebody from getting creative and taking that 20 acres.
And once again, I state,
Selling it 4 times.
the mechanism is there today through our zoning board of appeals. If someone wants to do this, and someone says, listen, it's my right to develop my land, I'm doing this, I still have the frontage, I still meet all other aspects, I'm legally willing to give up this access, you know, who's to stop them from doing that? So that you have the land, the septic field approval, so you got well approval, and make a contingent agreement, and go.
Very good. Mrs. Hamilton?
Okay, so back in the early 90s, there was a big push out here, we were going to keep Salem rural. And the board, in my opinion, was very misguided. I came at that time and spoke against a number of the things that they proposed. They proposed large lots on farms. If you were the stupid farmer to still farm your land, you couldn't develop it anymore. They wanted to have 40-acre minimums. This is part of that, I believe, that mentality that they had. And there was, and I'm not faulting the board, because at that time, that was where planning went. The way that you preserved large open space was to have very low density. If you study land use today, the school today says that that's not how you preserve open space, by creating large parcels. Today you do it by kind of incorporating on those large pieces, maybe a PUD on smaller lots, keeping some of the land open. So that was the first thing. They were trying to retain it as rural, and I believe they had a lot of errors in it. I sat in this room, the board sat that way, this is before all this stuff, and this room was packed, and I was very ill the night I spoke. I had a very high fever, and I got a standing ovation, the only time in this room I ever have. So I distinctly remember it. I believe, again, it was part, that their intent was good, but they were wrong on what they did. The other thing is, when you put in a private drive or a shared drive, the consultant doesn't get a fee. So of course the township engineers are going to recommend something that requires their review where they get money. That's the reality. That's how the world works. If you go to a surgeon, if you're ill, to give you an analogy, if you go to a surgeon because you have a problem, they want to do surgery. That's what they recommend. Nothing wrong with them. They're very good at what they do, but that's what they recommend. There are generally other options. And so the private road really was some of the concerns you talked about. How do you get vehicles up and down a road? And I told you last meeting, you guys keep talking about the fire truck. The reason that these fire trucks have a mile of hose on them is because the hose will go down the driveway if the truck can't. And years ago, I was in Superior Township. I used to take pictures for a lot of the local fire departments and for the state police. And they have what they call a McMansion over there. The house had an observatory built onto it, and they had a stable, and there was a tunnel underground between the observatory and the stable. So it was an interesting house. And they sat a half mile back off the road. Salem went to put the fire out, and the man that was the chief of Superior Township had been my assistant principal when I was in high school. And so he informed me that I was to show up for his major fires to document them. And the way that they put the fire out was they ran a half a mile of hose from Ford Road back to the house. But I believe that that's some of the same misguided intent. People think that you have to do it this way. And so that was kind of why the township did what they did. Bart keeps talking about easements. I got property right now, Bart. I got 66-foot easements because I own the front piece and the back piece.
Right.
And right now, to put a house on the back piece, if somebody in the family wants a house, we have to build a 66-foot road.
Yeah.
So you already have easements. It's recorded on your deed, and no one's going to buy an easement unless it's recorded, because that's what protects you.
Yep.
So some of the things you're talking about, again, it's over concern. The real issue comes, if I'm going to develop Bart's scenario, a big piece of land, I'm not going to do it the way you're talking about anyways, where I have restrictions. I can only have so many splits a year. I'm going to come in to see you with a site plan, just like Showstack did, because I want to develop the entire piece, and I'm probably working in conjunction with the developer. But that's the history of why the board did it. Again, it was that intent to keep Salem rural, but just like 40-acre minimums, it didn't do it. And I gave, this is the example that I gave that night, is yes, we own 2 farms in Salem Township. And at the time, my in-laws were both still alive. If they had to go into a nursing home, we don't have a huge cash account at the bank. But what we do have is land. And so the ability to sell a couple of acres to care for grandma and grandpa as they age, and I guess I'm getting to be that generation now, is needed. If you can't do some of these things, what you'll do is you'll force, as this gentleman said here, you're gonna force him to develop his property because he's gotta now pay for the private road. So he's gonna sell it to a developer. And that was the same thing when they had this 40-acre minimum, which was part of this whole movement. And that's what I shared that night, that if you do that, I'll simply sell to a developer who has that attorney on staff who will go to court and show that I bought my property before zoning existed. We own land that's been in the family since 1828. My parents own land that's been in my family since 1929. That's before this township had zoning. We had a whole lot more expectations, earlier generations, than we have today. And so again, you need to do what you think is right today. And just like when you did the fence ordinance, the township had a fence ordinance for good reason. But you could see that there was something that was fundamentally wrong with it for those of us that have cows and horses, and so you made a change. And I think that that's what you need to do here. Darrell talks about these guys that come to the same point on 6 Mile. They don't have a shared driveway. They have a shared access point. They have that because the road commission doesn't want all these curb cuts. And again, if you go out and you look on 5 Mile where I live, you have where 2 driveways will run next to each other. That's because you can't have a shared driveway. They literally run right next to each other. The houses still exist under the current ordinance. But because you can't have a shared driveway, you have twice the impervious surface. You have double the curb cuts. It doesn't change the amount of traffic on the road. It doesn't change the fact that the houses are there. All it is, it's about the driveways. And again, that private road in Bart, you know it firsthand. Because you and I dealt with it together on your property.
Yep.
It's very expensive. It's very expensive. Not only do you have to have the engineer there, but you have to build your driveway to a road standard. And I think the township, part of the other reason why they looked at it back then was, and I'm going to share it because it's something you need to hear. The flip side of what you're talking about tonight was, if you have a shared driveway, and you can only have 2 homes that access it, you will eventually have someone that wants to access it with 3. And so that's the flip side of it, is if you do it with 3, then you're going to have people that want to come in and they want one more. Well, we didn't know we should have built it to a private road standard. So just to be fair and to share that with you, that is the other component to that, is if I build a driveway, I've not built it to private road standards. And so in essence, I then, if I want to do the 3rd parcel, I have to start from scratch. So it's kind of a balancing act between them, but that is where it came from, particularly the private road and no more shared driveways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All righty. Any planning commissioners have any questions, concerns, comments? Can we move on? Okay. I would like to thank the public for all their input, because there's all different kinds of these. And just like the fence issue, something was brought in, it was a generic cookie cutter thing, and we all said, that doesn't work for Salem, because Salem doesn't, we don't do cookie cutter. So I feel that this is the same way, you know, people, I think we can come up with something reasonable to help people for things that make sense. But I still think we need a little bit more information. That being said, I would recommend that we postpone this issue until we can get some more information from Paul.
We're not saying continue it next month, we're saying.
Well, if we can get it all together and brings it up next month and put it on the agenda, which I will read thoroughly and carefully.
Thanksgiving.
And and address it then. That's just my recommendation.
I'm just unclear as to how we, I guess, legally close this out, or according to the rules of, what's the guy's name?
Before you close the public comment,
We haven't opened public comment yet.
before you close the public comment, could I?
We haven't
We haven't
opened public
opened public
comment. We
comment
haven't
yet.
opened public comment.
No, the public hearing, I mean.
Oh, that's what
That's
closed.
been closed.
Oh, but go ahead, Wayne, what do you have to say? Go ahead.
I thought this was all part of the public hearing.
No, you guys had your part, and then this was just discussion of the issues.
Did you officially close the public comment?
Yes.
With a motion?
Yeah, with a motion.
With the motion.
Pardon me, I missed that.
I don't think we did.
Yes, we did, because I wrote it down. 82. Okay. So
Can I
believe-
ask a couple of clarification? You took some other questions from the
Oh,
audience.
sure.
Thank you very much. In regard to the current, the draft ordinance, the way it's proposed right now, what is the minimum width of a parcel that would be allowed to have a shared driveway? I think Mr. Reeves spoke to that.
The example that Paul used was 216 feet. 150 foot for the lot and another 66 foot for an easement. That was the example used to create this map.
Now that would.
There is no actual language in there specifically.
That's an example, and that's using, I believe, the agricultural district's lot width standard, but it really, the way it's written now, it would still depend on the zoning district that these parcels
I
are
believe to
located.
say, probably the best way to state that is any property that currently has legal access to road frontage via their driveway can have a split driveway.
If you have the appropriate road frontage, and the parcel in the back, if you're creating a new parcel, that has to meet the zoning
Yeah,
district
new part, I'm
standards
just
as
talking
well.
about just the driveway portion itself. I believe we closed the public comment section at 8:18. We don't
Yeah.
hearing.
No, we closed the hearing at 18, but that's okay. He's got a couple questions. Let's go ahead. It's not a big deal. We're pretty much done.
The other clarification was, I believe Mr. Montagno said at the last meeting, the reason that he brought this forward was is that there were 6 people, if I remember correctly, that brought this to his attention, that came in and saw him. And I was a little bit surprised by that. And also in regard to, I think Mr. McGarry thought possibly that the board wanted you guys to move forward with this. I read the minutes and I don't remember at any board meeting that the board discussed this issue and there was ever any directive from the board to the planning commission to address private drives and private roads. Would that be a fair statement? Thank you.
Point of information.
Yes.
Our planner who provides us with the letters and memoranda and so forth states clearly the private road ordinance is under the review of the township board, under the preview of the township board. However, there are changes that you need to make to zoning ordinance as well. The planning commission is responsible for holding the public hearing on any zoning ordinance amendments and must make a recommendation to the township. So you're right, it's probably not there, but this is the process to get it there.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, in regard to what Mr. Fernandez said in regard to the fact that other communities don't have the infrastructure to support the traffic in Salem Township, is suffering from that, and I agree, and I think one of the examples is Lyon Township, for sure. I think they're looking at their master plan and their ordinances, and they've ignored it for years, and not only are they suffering, but their neighboring communities are suffering. So I think it's imperative we stay consistent with our master plan and our ordinances. And I'll ask the question in regard to the show stack, the approval of the 550 home development. Was there an impact study, a traffic impact study, that showed what impacts there will be on the roads in Salem Township, and is that available to the public? Prior to the approval of the rezoning, or from the planning commission's.
I believe there was a traffic study, and I believe there's a condition inside the agreement that they have to, again, meet all the requirements, and it involves wash. It's in there. It's in the agreement, the master agreement that's a condition that they have to meet along with several other things within it. I think it's actually written into an ordinance of some sort. Again, Paul could speak to that a little better than I can, but it is to legal, what you call it, but there's an agreement with those folks that say they have to meet criteria A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and one of them is the traffic studies and making provision for the traffic studies. Because there was a number of questions over the intersection at Joy and Napier and the different places we came out onto the public highways. And that's one of the reasons why we were pushing for the Joy Road entrance and things like that to try and help, ease and balance some of that out there. So there is a requirement on their part to do and update traffic studies and get with the road commission. So there's other people that are looking at that, that's gonna overlay on top of our requirements, and then we have our requirements in there as well.
So you guys did do a traffic study prior to your
We
recommendation?
personally did not do that.
They did it, and it was generic, I believe.
Yeah, it was
It was
requested of
just
the,
generic, and we still had other questions that they needed to provide answers to. That's just what I recall. Something like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Before we move on, just for clarification. And, I've made long statements before, long assumptions before, and this may be one of them. I had thought that this whole discussion that we've been having on the private road was part of the hearing. And I believe at 8:18, even though your notes may say different, and just to make sure we do this right, I believe we closed the public comment of it and continued with.
public hearing.
Yes.
That is the.
The public comment is the only, public comment is public hearing.
Public hearing, right.
Our Venn diagram, complete overlap.
We had public comment, which was supposed to be for other things other than this.
And that
And
finished at
it kind
8:18.
of, that was a little
No,
fuzzy,
no.
but no, that was the first part. And then we went to the public hearing, which opened at 7:45, and
Public
we
hearing.
have,
open
yep,
at
we have
7.
all, that's
Yeah.
where everybody spoke, and we closed that at 8:18. And then we had our discussion, but because we're all friends and neighbors here, we just kind of included everybody, so. Small groups, we can,
Public hearing. Okay,
Comment,
okay,
public
then
hearing.
let me just ask, I mean, I'm seriously like trying to understand. We have new business items, A, public hearing, private roads and private drives. If at 8:18, we closed the public hearing,
Yeah.
what did we discuss from 8:18 up until 5 minutes ago?
just board discussion.
Just board discussion on the same topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're fired, Bart.
I'm learning things here, guys, I mean, what?
Well,
I'm learning.
sometimes the rules get a little fuzzy, and the
Because
way
you were
I see
just
it,
taking comments from them up until 8:18.
right,
Right, okay.
that's the
They had
formal
a floor.
part of the public hearing,
They had
that's
the
their,
floor.
exactly.
Okay, so,
But then when we have our discussion, it's a small group, you stay in control,
Okay.
respectful, we can do that.
so I guess maybe our agenda, if I were to write the agenda, I'd put public comment section and then put board discussion, there'd be an A and B under the, new business items.
Okay,
That's all, okay. Now I understand.
okay,
Thank you,
so
guys.
now, from what I understand, we have,
What about-
the board, this commission has three options. We can vote to approve, recommend, we can vote to recommend to the board, we can vote to not recommend to the board, or we can postpone it. That was my understanding.
Is it correct? And technically, I mean, because the township board, you're the recommending body, you don't have to send it on to the board. I mean, you can postpone it, but to recommend denial may not be productive because the township board, I mean, it's a proposed amendment, so really the township board has ultimate control. So, yeah, a recommendation of approval, a recommendation of a denial, or if you still want to talk about it more, a postponement.
Right.
Yes, sorry, so, you're right.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I went back on myself.
Leave it a blind spot.
Okay. I think because we're still looking for information, we don't know what the situations are, and I think if we just open a blanket, I think that's gonna open a whole can of worms, and I think, like our fence issue, we can tailor this to suit the needs of our community if we get a little more
If at
information.
all.
Yeah.
If at all.
If at all, so.
And I'd like to, Madam Chair, reaffirm that we all get an opportunity to submit in writing our questions and concerns. And
Yeah.
all that can be forwarded to the planner.
Yep.
And I would recommend
And we'll do it in
that, and I recommend that the planner move expeditiously to provide us with our answers so we can bring it up at our next board.
Okay. That
Can you
sounds
turn
good.
that into a motion?
Nice. We're getting homework.
And
It's okay.
basically, I was going to try to do the motion that we postpone any action until we get additional information from the plan, but what you're putting in is a lot easier. If you can turn that into a motion, it'd be really helpful.
Can you put it into a motion, you know what we're talking about.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion,
Okay.
Madam Chair, that the Planning Commission postpone further action at this time on the matter before us on private roads and private driveway, and that we all submit, the members of the commission submit in writing to the chairperson our concerns, our questions, and our recommendations to be forwarded to our planning consultant, and that the planning consultant respond to us expeditiously with our concerns and recommendations and questions, and that we bring this before this commission at the next month's, or July's meeting.
And you have to write that out.
Why would you want to put pressure on the planner to
Well,
move it till next month? What if he needs August? It should be up to him to resubmit
Well,
it
you
and
know,
then to add it to
Darrell,
the
I'm a little
agenda.
different in that.
Well, expeditiously may
Wait,
mean it can't be ready for
expeditiously.
next month.
Yeah.
He just may not be ready. I mean, it is
Yeah.
what it is. We ask him quickly, how long it takes for him to answer is different.
Okay.
Two different things.
Now, there's a motion for you, Bruce.
I like
Yeah,
that.
thanks.
You cut it, cut every word.
Yeah.
It's on tape.
Right, no.
Okay. We have a second on that.
That no second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Oh my gosh, I gotta repeat that, okay. We do a roll call vote. So. So, the motion is to postpone further action at this time on private roads and private driveways. And members of the commission are to submit all questions and concerns regarding the private driveways to the chair, who will submit to the planner requesting an expeditious response and answer to all their questions to review this next month. Or are we taking off the next month? To plan to review, so we can review this as soon as possible. Is that okay? Okay. So, Mr. Secretary, if you do a roll call, please.
Okay. There's a motion, there's a second, and the roll call is Bart? King?
It's okay.
Con? Sorry.
Yay.
Yay. Augie?
Yes.
Carol, vote no?
Yes.
TJ Malone?
Yes.
Pam Malone?
Yes.
Bruce Reed was yes. Dan McGarry?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay, moving on. Number 7, old business items, none. 8, reports of commissioners and correspondence. Board of Trustee. None. Zoning Board of Appeals.
We just had, this past week, 4 requests for variances on people building pole barns and things in the back and odd places on the property that don't, go with the ideal situation behind a house and hidden by trees, but that was the extent of it. We approved 3 of them, and we gave the requester on the 4th one options to make a change in order for it to fit. And that was about it. Nothing planned for until the next quarter.
Land preservation and conservation?
Nothing to report.
Oh, that was approved.
Okay, number 10, approval of the minutes for May 15th, 2017. Only thing I noticed that on the minutes was under the private road and drives, under the motion, that it's printed that to move forward with effort on private road. I just thought it was more discussion, and to me that sounds like it's an intent, but it's a minor detail, I suppose.
That's what I have on my notes. To move forward and,
Okay,
on that.
okay.
And of course, you're using the latest one from Andy's
Yes.
minutes.
Yep.
I said, did you make a motion?
Okay.
Ann?
Nope, I didn't.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes of May 15th, 2017, draft as submitted.
I second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of May 15th, 2017, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay. Number 11, public comments. Fine.
Okay, I know a while ago we had this discussion about the tree report and other areas, and we were told that there was a lot of nuisance calls. People were going to argue with each other, and there were nuisance calls. It turned out to be there was a whole 6. Now, you said there's a lot of people who have property problems, and they're calling, and there sounds like the whole township is marching in here. How many people do we know actually had a problem and are calling or talking to?
We don't know, that's one of
Yeah,
our
well, that was
questions to the
actually
plan.
discussed and asked. We don't know. We're asking for that to be quantified.
Okay, well,
Yep.
we're going to a big bunch of problems with all this. This will be the 3rd meeting that I know of that you've been on driveways and not sure, and this sort of stuff. And we don't know if it's a problem in the township, because we don't know how many people have actually called in.
Well, if it's a problem for one person in the township, it's a problem. We have to consider everybody in the township. We're not going to sit there.
We don't have to change all the rules.
Right,
for
absolutely.
one person.
But unless we want to get into a discussion of, okay, well, how many people need to call in before we need to address it in the township, that is another can of worms. Which is exactly why we said we really want to understand where these comments are coming from. I personally asked, what happened that started this whole rigmarole? You know, what got this all stirred up to begin with? I will continue to ask for that.
Well, my question is, we were given this big line of, we had so many people calling in about having nuisance with their neighbors or stuff like that. That was a few months back, and it turned out to be, I think it was either 3 or 6 people over the last 2 years.
And Hillary only sent a couple emails. So, you know, we're trying to figure it out, you know, I mean,
This is why I asked, why we're going into this over, is it a little or nothing? Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, the meeting's adjourned at 9:39.
Guys, great meeting, thank you. Thank you guys for being here, for your input. That was great.
I think what we're gonna do.
What's happening, Bob?
Thank you for serving the
No, they're always
We're gonna
problems.
keep it in a chain.
I would love to see what
And I'll
you
put it in
did.
some directions once I figure it out, so also everybody can see the questions that they have. Like if you send questions, then it won't repeat.
I was at the truck, I was at the truck, I had to walk.